Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be going through buff stacking. This was a question that was asked on my forum string, just asking what are you guys looking for video wise. So I know that we already know Princess 3 taunt can be replaced by a Dr. Stevens 1 taunt. I will still show that in this video because I know a lot of people don't know that. So I'm just going to explain why that happens. And what else I'm going to be testing is how stat-based buffs, how they're replaced or not replaced, because this can be very confusing at times, especially when you run multiple characters that give buffs. So the first thing I'll be testing is a character like Kate, and Maggie, 50% attack for 2 turns versus 75% attack for 1 turn. We're going to see what's going to be replaced, and then we're going to do the exact opposite where Maggie goes first and then Kate, and see if Kate will replace Maggie's buff because she's a 2-turn buff. We're also going to compare Maggie to Alice because Maggie gives a 75% attack buff and so does Alice, but it's 1 turn to 2 turn. So we're going to see if any type of overwrite actually happens, and then we'll also reverse that scenario so that we can see that if Alice goes first, will Maggie with a 1-turn attack up buff replace it or not. Finally, we're also going to be checking debuffs, so that's defense down, just to make sure that everything is working as intended and in a consistent manner. And guys and gals, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more content and information, and feel free to take a gander on the forums, find my post, and feel free to request a video or two. I am always open to making new videos. Some take a bit longer to make than others, and just as new things come out, I obviously have to prioritize what I do. So the first scenario that I'm going to be testing is rushing Kate first and then Maggie. So Kate does a 50% attack buff over 2 turns, while Maggie gives a 75% attack buff over a single turn. Now, I'm not exactly sure, I can't remember what the order of operation is for what will take precedence, but we're about to find out. So Kate has her 50% attack buff, and it looks like Maggie overwrites it. So now you have a 75% attack buff for a single turn, and I'm guessing that's because 75% is considered greater than 50%. And now we're going to do it in reverse, so we're going to rush Maggie first, and then rush Kate after to see if her 50% will overtake the 75%. I don't think it will because 75% is greater, even though 50% works over multiple turns. So as we see, 75% takes over. There is no 50% even after Kate rushes. So Kate applies a great focus as well as a heal, but the 50% attack buff is lost. And now we're going to be comparing Alice and Maggie. Both give a 75% attack buff, but Alice gives a 3-turn versus Maggie giving a single turn. So we're gonna rush Alice first, and we have a 75% attack buff for 3 turns. If we rush Maggie right after, Maggie does not take precedence. We can see we still have a 3-turn 75% attack buff. So this is kind of reassuring, where if you have the same type of stat boost, you take the one that will last the most turns. Now, this doesn't always work when we talk about taunt, for example, and I'll show that later on. But in this case right now, we're going to do it the other way. So Maggie rushes first, 75% attack buff for a single turn. We can see that on the counter. If we rush Alice right after, we can see that it's replaced with a 3-turn attack buff, which obviously gives us an advantage. And now we're going to check a defense down debuff. So Harper, when she rushes, minus 50% defense down for 2 turns, but Victor can do a 3-turn defense down. So we're just checking now to make sure that in the case of Victor, his 3-turn minus 50% debuff will apply to the enemy team every single time and take precedence over Harper's 2-turn. So we see the 2-turn defense down and attack down. We're focused on the defense down, and we see that it's now changed to a counter of 3 after Victor rushes right after. So that is pretty reassuring. Now we're going to check it the other way. So we're going to have Victor rush first and apply the minus 50% defense down for 3 turns, and then after we're going to rush Harper, and just to check to make sure that we still have that minus 50% for the 3 turns, because that one is obviously more effective than Harper's. We still get the attack down, but the defense down is still a counter of 3. And now we're going to check to see how Victor and Krista interact. Victor minus 50% defense down, Krista a minus 40% defense down. So again, we're just checking to make sure that Victor's defense down will end up overriding Krista's. We can see Krista's defense down is applied for 2 turns. As soon as Victor rushes, the minus 50% defense down is applied. And now when we do it in reverse, just to make sure again that the stronger or higher defense down takes precedence, we're going to rush Victor first, and then we'll follow up with Krista after. And this is just a good way to kind of bug check as well, to make sure things are working as intended. So Victor rushes, active skill with Krista. We don't see the minus 40%, we just see that she gains focus. The last part that we're going to check regarding defense down will be Ivanova and Harper. Ivanova does a minus 25% defense down to a line of enemies for 3 turns, while Harper does minus 50% for 2 turns. So again, just making sure that the greater defense down takes precedence over a longer defense down. And we can see that on Pete right now. And again, the reverse of this would be rushing Ivanova first and then using Harper after. After all this testing, we know that Harper should be applying her defense down before or after Ivanova, and it'll take precedence because it's minus 50% versus minus 25%. So this is a good way to kind of not overlap your abilities. You're more aware of how tunes are supposed to interact, and that way if you do see something strange, you can also let me know. And now what I was mentioning before about this whole taunt thing. So with taunt, it's a little different, where if a taunt is applied after and it's less turns, it will take precedence. So right now, Princess applies a 3-turn taunt, but if I rush Dr. Stevens, the taunt is reduced to 1 turn. This is a little strange, just because with stat boosts, for example, when we did 75% attack up, the one that went over for longer turns took precedence, but regarding a status effect, it does not. So the correct order, well, not the correct order, but if you want a multi-turn taunt, rush with Dr. Stevens first, and then use Princess's active skill, so it's a 3-turn taunt instead of a 1. So I will admit that I learned something from making this video. I knew that regarding like taunt, and I'm assuming now confuse and stun and other like status effects, it'll all be about who performs the last move. Instead of with stat buffs, it's all about if they're equal. So if they're the same thing, so 75% and 75%, it'll be whatever has the longer turn duration, which is better for the player. But in the case of something like taunt, we notice that if Princess uses her taunt first and applies it to 3 characters for 3 turns, but then we use Dr. Stevens after her on the same turn or even on the next turn, his taunt will take precedence, which is a little annoying because instead of having a 3-turn taunt now, you have a 1-turn taunt. You do have the impair for a single turn, but you kind of miss out on having that taunt loop with Princess, or the stun for multiple turns, or confuse, or really any other status effect. It's just the inconsistency makes it hard to remember all the differences. I would have guessed that the attack buffs or stat buffs would act the same way as status effect duration, where it's whatever happens last, assuming they are the same. It'll always take the stronger one, which is kind of nice, but regarding turn duration, taunt is taunt. Attack up, if it's the same amount, should work in the same way, in my mind at least. But as we've seen, that's definitely disproven here. So it's really important to test as many things as you can in the game to better understand them. I didn't know that this is how it worked, and by it I mean 75% attack up. If it's 2 turns, we'll take precedence over 1 turn, irregardless of who applies it last. But on the same note, a higher attack up, so 75%, will take precedence over a 50% attack up, even if the 50% attack up is a longer turn duration. So the example of a 1-turn 75% attack up from Maggie versus a 2-turn 50% attack up from Kate. Maggie will take precedence. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and listening to my video. Again, let me know in the comment section below or on forums if there are any video requests that you guys would like. I actually had a lot of fun doing this, and I ended up learning something as well.